I think we should start.
All right, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I actually have a formal introduction of Nithya Shanti right in front of me. While I was going through the introduction, I was just thinking to myself that's something that everyone can visit on internet and get through to. So I was thinking of a story that I came across a couple of years ago, and my grandfather actually introduced me to this story, and I'm sure a lot of you must have come across this story as well. It's one of my favorite. It's about a lion and a fox and a guy who wanted to pursue a spiritual path. So this guy who actually wanted to pursue a spiritual path went to the forest close to his village and found a spot for himself under the tree, started to meditate. Now, you always want to be near your village because you want to eat. You want to get back to your village and eat. So, under the tree, he starts to meditate and he witnesses a crippled fox close by. And to his surprise, he's really healthy. He's crippled but healthy, which is not very common. It's not normal. So while he was looking at this fox, he suddenly hears the roar of a lion, leaves his meditation aside and climbs up a tree, starts to witness what was happening. And to his surprise, the lion had a piece of meat in his mouth and he fed the fox with that piece of meat. This continued for a couple of days. And he thought to himself, he thought, there should be some divine message in this. There has to be something. Since this is not that normal and it's only me who's witnessing it. He kept on thinking over this for a couple of days, and then he came to a conclusion that divine actually wanted to convey to him that this is a miraculous forest and he just needs to open his mouth to feed himself. He doesn't need to go back to his village. So he started to do that. He stopped going to his village. Every time he was hungry, he would open his mouth, look up to the sky, thinking that something would fall into his mouth. And every time he was actually let down because he couldn't get anything. By the end of the 7 days, he was almost about to die. He was groaning, and suddenly there was another yogi who passes by. Listening to his groans, he stands there, stands to ask the man who was about to die and asks what happened. To this, the man narrated the entire story and the entire incident that he had been through all these days, complaining that I'm still waiting for the divine to drop some food for me so that I can live and meditate. The yogi smiled with a calmness on his face, the compose that he had, and replied to him, why was it that he looked forward to be a fox instead of being the lion himself? Now, in this entire story, when I look at you, Nithya, to be very natural, I see you as the lion of the story, who lived into the forest for 6 years, meditated, learned the principles of life, spreading happiness, and then got back to us to share all of your wisdom and the teachings. Isn't that amazing, ladies and gentlemen? We have the man, the lion himself today, Nithya Shanti, to brief us on one of the most important aspects of our life, which is emotions. And we all need to admit this, that we are all driven by our emotions. So Nithya, thank you so much for accepting my invitation, coming on board Sattva Speaks, and addressing us on such important topic as emotion and handling emotions with the tools necessary as you teach us.
Thank you for having me. And that was a very beautiful story.
Thank you so much. Yeah. All over to you. Please let me know, how do you define emotions in a layman's language? And how do you think we should perceive it to take our lives on a right track?
Yeah, beautiful. So there's a term that some of you might have heard of, which I find very accurate. Emotions are energy in motion. That makes a lot of sense to me. Emotions are energy in motion. And so now energy can be in clean, smooth motion, just like traffic. Traffic is in motion. So they can be clean, smooth motion, or they can be constipated motion, where it's kind of traffic is stuck and nothing much is moving. With great difficulty, you move forward. It's still moving, but it's moving really slowly. When Tata Nano came out, this tiny car, then people were so concerned. They thought the whole country is now going to buy cars. And they thought that now there'll be no roads, there'll only be rivers. Rivers means rivers of vehicles. Of course, that didn't happen. But emotion, energy and motion. So what I'd like to say is to be in touch with the energetic dimension of our life. The energetic dimension is the dimension of, call it vibration, call it feeling, and to be more attuned to that. And the whole point of a conversation like this is to become more sensitive, is to become more attuned, is to become more aware, is to become more attentive. Because like you said, it's one of the most important aspects of our life. You could be living in a hut, having very few things, and could be contented beyond your dreams, happy beyond your dreams. There's a story of a Zen master who lived in a hut on the top of a mountain, and he would go for a walk every evening. And one day he came back and he was shocked to find that there's a man in his hut. Who was this man? And the way the man is behaving, he's all startled. The Zen monk realizes, oh, this is a thief. And he feels very sad for this thief, because the thief has climbed up this big mountain. He's come to his hut in hopes of stealing something. But his hut is empty. He has pretty much nothing in the hut. There's nothing to steal there. So he feels very sorry for this thief. He takes out the clothes that he's wearing and holds them out. And the thief doesn't know what to do. And he runs, he grabs the clothes and he runs out. And he runs down the mountain. And the Zen monk then is sitting naked in his hut. And there's a big window. And looking out of the window, he sees the full moon. And tears start coming out of his eyes. It's like, I wish I could share this moon with that man. And I love that story. It shows how you can have so little and you can have such abundance. You can have such contentment. In fact, some of the wise men of India were asked. In fact, that could be anywhere in the world. Doesn't have to be India. But the story comes from India. There was a wise man who had very few possessions, who lived very simply. And he was asked, how come you're content with so little? How come you don't want more? So the wise man asked the person who was questioning him. He said, have you ever prayed for an extra lung? Have you ever prayed for an extra heart? Have you ever prayed for an extra stomach? Have you ever prayed for an extra leg? We pray for all kinds of things, but very rarely do we pray for such things. You never go, give me an extra lung, give me an extra stomach. Why not? I already have that. I already have lungs. I already have heart. I already have. Why would I pray for something I already have? He says, that's the case with me. I used to think that I'm limited to this mind and body. But I've now realized that this entire universe is my body. This entire universe is a product of my mind. And this entire universe is my body. So when it's all mine anyway, why would I ask for anything? So what a beautiful story of contentment. There was also a Sufi master. Somebody came to meet him. And he came to his hut, completely empty hut, bare hut. By the way, that doesn't mean you can still have things. These are just stories to show us how beautiful contentment can be. Wherever we are in life, we can be contented. So anyway, this man goes to meet the Sufi master. His hut is completely empty. And he asks the Sufi master, where are all your things? The Sufi master looks at him also very surprised. Where are your things? He says, but I'm a visitor. I don't have anything. I'm a visitor here. And the Sufi master says, I'm also a visitor here.
Oh, that's
so I don't have so many things. So the point is that let's be very clear. This is very important. Let's be very clear. Everything we are doing in life, everything we are trying to do and become and have and accumulate is because we imagine it'll make us feel a certain way. Having that kind of home, that kind of house, that kind of car, that kind of relationship, that kind of job, those kinds of clothes, that kind of physical beauty or whatever it is will make me feel a certain way. We're doing it to feel a certain way. So this is one very important lesson I learned in my journey, that I can do things for joy. I can do things for happiness. I can do things for peace, or I can do things from peace, from joy, from that state of being that I'm seeking. This is very important. When you understand this, you start understanding what spirituality is all about, what the path of wisdom is all about. Otherwise, we're endlessly running, and it's like we're running in the blind. We're shooting in the blind, hoping, wondering, I wonder if that'll give me, that'll give me. And how many times in our life have we got what we wanted? We prayed very hard, we intended, we manifested it, and then what? And how long did it really satisfy us? Right. So, in today's discussion, I'd like to share my understanding of this topic, and also keep it practical. Let's actually practice together, because my aim is not just for this to be a talk. You will not. I will not. Even I will not remember what I said in the talk, and you will certainly not remember everything that I said in the talk. So more than talk, my aim is for this experience together to be a shift in our state of being. When a shift happens in our state of being, something very fundamentally shifts. It's like when water becomes steam, right? Or you could say when graphite becomes a diamond. I saw a cartoon where there was Mother Graphite talking to baby graphite. Mother Graphite is telling baby graphite, don't trouble your dad. He's been under tremendous pressure lately, and dad's become a diamond. So graphite under tremendous pressure becomes a diamond, and diamond does not go back to being graphite. It's a change of states. So once there's a nice quote, it's not exactly, but more or less what it says is that a mind that has been expanded by a new idea can never again go back to that closed way of thinking. So it's called transcend and include. So once you realize that you're not just yourself, you're also a member of a family. You're not just a member of a family, you're also a member of a community. Not just a member of a community, but also a member of maybe a nation. Not only a nation, but a citizen of the world. Not only of the world, but the whole universe. Each time you grow in consciousness like that, you can never quite go back. And of course, you can understand that way of looking at it, but you're never going to be thoroughly convinced by it anymore. Astronauts, for example, when they come back to Earth, they can no longer so strongly be nationalistic, patriotic in the same way anymore. When you see in the world as one living system, you realize, oh my, what are we doing? We've drawn these lines, and we're getting so emotionally attached to these lines that we've drawn on a map. But the reality is it's one planet. It's a very fragile planet. So it's called the overview effect, that when you come back from outer space, you look at the world in a different way. And this happens to pretty much everybody. When they come back from outer space, then the sense of oneness, that we are all part of this one beautiful planet. So mind that's been expanded with that overview effect can never go back to then that same small, narrow, bigoted way of seeing life anymore. You just can't. You can understand how people think like that, but you can never quite go back to that. So what I'd like to offer here is that two things for today's session. I would call it grounding and growing. Grounding and growing. Another phrase could be rooting and expanding. Rooting and expanding. What does it mean to ground? What does it mean to root? It is to be present with your current reality, the way it is. So right now you're probably seeing me on the screen or some other people on the screen. You're hearing certain things. You're hearing my words, there may be other background sound. There's physical touch. The hand may be touching the other hand, or maybe touching the legs. The clothing is touching the skin. Air is touching, maybe some breeze is blowing. It's touching your skin. Lip is touching the other lip. If you're sitting on a chair, you have back support. You can feel something touching the back. Present reality. So this is sensory experience. And then of course there's inner experience, emotions, thoughts. You're trying to figure out what I'm saying. Do you agree with it or not? So to ground and to root is to come back and reconnect with this present reality. And this is a very important step. Otherwise, we're constantly, it's like the plane is always flying, it's never landing. The plane has to land. Lands here, lands here. So start here, start now, start where you are. And often we're restless. So this is, okay, but so what's next? What's the next thing? So I saw a cartoon. The young monk is sitting with a senior monk. And the senior monk has only one line to say. He says, nothing happens next. This is it. The senior monk is telling the young monk, nothing happens next. This is it. This whole sense of what's next, what's next, what's next. There are two myths of happiness. The myth of when and the myth of more. I think you can guess what it means, right? When something happens, when I finally understand these things, when I finally apply these things, when I finally, X happens in my life, then I'll be happy. And how many times have you played that game of when something happens, I'll be happy? When I finish school, when the holidays begin, when I get into that college, when I get married, when. So one very good thing that can happen on today's call is you can recognize the myth of when. Doesn't mean you'll be completely out of it. It may still be there. The remnants may still be there, but at least recognize that it's a myth. Because there's a very big difference between someone who recognizes the myth of when and someone who's completely hypnotized by the myth of when their entire life. So the first one is when something happens, then I'll be happy. This is a myth of happiness, and you can spend your whole life chasing this imaginary happiness somewhere, sometime. You get there, but you're never quite there. Second one is called the myth of more. When I have more of something. I was in Santa Barbara and I was teaching, and I asked them, what do you want more of? And almost everybody said money. This is one of the richest towns in the US, Santa Barbara. Top actors and all live there. And even here, they want money. So then if these people are not going to be content with the money they have, then who's ever going to be content? Every house seems to be $1 million house in Santa Barbara. So the myth of more, no matter how much you have, it's never quite enough. You know why? Because when you get more, your needs also, your so-called needs, your wants expand, your sense of what you think you need expands. Earlier, you were just thinking of one day, but now you're thinking of a month, you're thinking of a year, you're thinking of 10 years. But typically, people at that level then start thinking of generations ahead. What kind of legacy am I leaving 5 generations ahead? So it's never quite enough. So it's called the myth of more. So whenever you come back into grounding, present reality, you have stepped out of both of these myths, the myth of when and the myth of more, and you're here now. So this is called grounding. Before the session, I was just tuning in, and a beautiful image came to my mind. And I want to ask this question to everybody. How do you know the age of a tree? And you can just type it in the comments. How do you know the age of a tree? Most of you would know this, quite simple. How do you know the age of a tree? And let's see what people have to type. Just address your comments to everyone, then we can all see what you've written. How do you know the
I
age
think
of a tree?
there are a couple of them who want to say something to you. I think it's
we could. I'm just going to see the
Anjali.
comments right now. So we have Alka says size of the bark. SD
The
says count the
circle
rings. Rings of the bark.
number of the rings in the bark.
Number of rings, yeah.
The rings
Right.
of the bar, yeah.
Not in the bark. Bark is the outer skin. It's like
No, in
it's
the
a cross section, right? So it's the layers, the trunk, right? Size of the root, someone says. All right, count the rings. So the most common answer is count the rings. Now, first of all, do you know why it has rings? The reason it has rings is because the tree does not grow at the same speed throughout the year. If it did, there would be no rings. So the tree grows faster during the summer months and slower during the winter months. So it's faster and slower, faster and slower, faster and slower. And that pulsating is what creates the ring of a tree. And it's all emerging from the center of the tree. So from the absolute center of the tree, where you could say there is nothing, from the absolute nothing comes the everything. And this is found across nature. All throughout nature, you find this. So scientists tell us this universe began from nothing. All they can tell us about the universe is began from nothing and it will return to nothing. So from zero back to zero. So there's a lesson here for us. In order for us to live a balanced life, a meaningful life, a joyful life, we have to consciously learn the art of returning to zero, returning to nothing. So let's try an experiment right now. Wherever you are, I'd like you to just come into the now. You're already in the now, but become aware of it. Just stop whatever else you're doing.
ठीक है, रख के चले जाइए, क्या कर सकते.
Maybe you can just mute some people who are unmuted. Yeah. So just come into the now and notice when you're fully present to your experience, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. Do you have any problems? Do you have any problems? In the present moment, are there any problems? You can type in the comments. Are you experiencing any problems? The only problem I normally hear about is, oh, my mind was wandering. Okay, apart from that, to whatever extent you were in the present, were there any problems? And one after the other, the answers are coming. No, 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 no. Yeah, beautiful. This is one of my favorite questions. I've asked this question in most of my programs, retreats and talks and programs. And I've asked it to thousands of people. And the answer just is, no. It just is, right? Someone has said pain on the shoulder. And again, if you drop the word pain, you drop the word shoulder. You just come into that experience. Is it really a problem? Unless you compare it to what it's like without pain on the shoulder, right? So come to the actual experience. I'll do one more experiment. Same thing, but slightly different. Being in the present. Come again, fully here. See what you're seeing. Notice the colors of what you're seeing. Notice the sounds you're hearing. Notice something in the room you haven't noticed yet. And now check. In the last few moments, did you think of your name? Did you think of your age? Did you think of how much money is in the bank? Did you think of your gender, man or woman? Did you think of your health? Are you very super fit or are you not healthy? Did you think of the members of your family? Chances are you didn't think of any of that. But here's the deeper question. Were you okay? Were you okay? And here I'm getting in the comments, yes, very okay. Yeah, fascinating, right? Because normally we think, our normal thinking is, I need all these identities to be okay. I need to, my family has to be there, money has to be there in the bank, health has to be like this. I have to have accomplished so much. I have to be, this young and fit. And all of these things have to happen before I can be okay. And this simple experiment shows us not required. I'm already okay. I'm whole and complete as I am. So here's a very, very important lesson for us today. Keep grounding, keep coming back, keep rooting yourself, grounding yourself. And there are a million practices. It's not about the practice. You will learn, you already know practices. I will also give you some practices today, but that's not the point. Get the principle. The principle is actually even practices are actually designed to be dropped. The practice is just a scaffolding to get you there. You got to actually drop all of those practices. It's like when you go in India, you go to temples. And someone goes wearing chappal, someone goes wearing sneakers, someone goes wearing high heels. But once you get to the temple door, you got to take it out. You got to leave all your footwear in order to be allowed to enter the temple. Nothing is allowed, right? Cars have to be left behind. Shoes have to be left behind. Everything has to be left behind to enter the temple. In the same way, to enter the now, you have to let go of everything that you think you are. Your stories have to be left behind. You cannot enter the now with your stories. Very important principle. So you're coming to the zero, and the zero is the place where entire universes are born. Zero is the place where the tree grows from. Zero is the center of the cyclone. We had a big cyclone in India recently. It's called a super cyclone. And the center of the cyclone is absolute zero. It's complete stillness. So if you want power in your life, we have to learn the art of returning to zero. You come to zero a little bit of the time, you have a little bit of power. You come to zero a lot of the time, you have a lot of power. You remain in a state of zero. Your power is no less than God's power. This is what God does, nothing and everything happens. So this is the opposite of what one can believe. So 2 lessons for today: grounding and growing, rooting and expanding, right? So one aspect is the aspect of what you call self-realization, or some people call it enlightenment, which is coming to zero. It's really as simple as what we did right now. It doesn't have to be very esoteric. Just come to zero, ground yourself. In the beginning, it's momentary, glimpse, less than a second, glimpse after glimpse. And as you go along, your whole concept of time changes. It's not that you're coming to zero inside of time, but all of time is happening inside of zero. It's like a whole turnaround. I had this experience many years back. I was traveling quite a bit. I was in India, I was in the US, different parts of the world. And somebody asked me, Nithya, how come you're pretty fresh, you're traveling so much, you're not getting jet lagged. What's happening? I mean, your energy levels are very high. What's happening? And it occurred to me that I wasn't thinking of myself as traveling. Because my actual experience, and just go with your actual experience. Your actual experience, do you really feel you're traveling? Or is the world traveling? Next time you walk on a pavement, try this. Okay, just check. Are you walking on the pavement? Or is the pavement moving through you? Are you going in the car? Or is the road moving through you? Actually, you have to go to a direct experience. Something very fascinating happens when you do this. So my experience was, I was not going to Delhi. I was not going to New York. I was not going to Boston. Delhi was coming to me. New York was coming to me. Boston was coming to me. So our direct experience tells us that we do not live in the world. The world lives in us. You wake up in the morning, the whole world is born. We should trust this direct experience, even though we are told and conditioned from the very beginning, no, you're just one person. What can you do? This is the conditioning. This is a very deep-rooted conditioning. But our actual experience, every single moment is telling us that's not the case. When I wake up, the whole world appears. So here's a very radical concept now. The radical concept is of 100% responsibility. If it's in your experience, it's your responsibility. If there is a problem, it's your problem. This is very fascinating. I learned this from the Hawaiian tradition of Ho'oponopono. I found that when I first heard it, my whole body got thrilled, you can tell a truth is true, at least it's true for you, when your whole being gets thrilled. So, wow, that makes complete sense. And like a very important part of the jigsaw came together when I realized 100% responsibility. If something is bugging me in my life, it's my responsibility. And so there's something in me that needs healing. So the Ho'oponopono tradition of Hawaii, it says that we can either live from memory or we can live from inspiration. When we live from memory, we're living from our stories. And most stories are, at one level or the other, inaccurate. Nithya Shanti, wonderful spiritual teacher, says, no thought is true. No thought is true. But some thoughts are truer than others. But no thought is true. I like that. So yeah, some memories are better than others, but no memory is ultimately true. So we can either live from memory or we can live from inspiration. The only way to live from inspiration is when you touch the 0 points. When you come into the now, when you open yourself, when you shed all your notions, empty yourself, empty yourself. One of my friends, Bharatanatyam dancer, told me that her teacher was incredibly strict, incredibly demanding, incredibly precise. One of the top Bharatanatyam dancers and teachers of India. And she was such a hard taskmaster, and they would practice, and they would almost never satisfy her. And then the time came for the performance, and they'd be all dressed up, and the way the Bharatanatyam dancers dress up so beautifully. And then the teacher would come to her and she would whisper in her ear, now forget everything I've taught you. Forget everything I've taught you. How fascinating. She gave us so many instructions, so much advice, so many corrections. But when the time came for the performance, now forget everything I've taught you. In other words, you know what she did? She gave her permission to be zero. Come back to zero. Empty yourself. Empty yourself. So when you want to accomplish a lot, you need to empty yourself a lot. They say in Indian tradition, they say, before the universe was created, Brahma had to empty himself. For centuries, for eons, he had to empty himself. When he emptied himself so deeply, from that emptiness sprung out this magnificent multi-layered universe. So the more powerfully you want to create, the more you have to come to that zero. Like we talked about the cyclone. Cyclone is one of the most powerful forces of nature that we know. At the center, the heart of the cyclone is absolute stillness, absolute emptiness. So Ho'oponopono is telling us we're either living from memory or we're living from inspiration. How do you live from inspiration? You come to the zero. You stop. And there's endless creativity there. There's endless responsiveness. There's responsiveness there. There's endless freshness there. And one more thing happens. The more you get still, like you might have noticed this, when you're going in an aeroplane, everything, like especially when the plane is landing, of course in the sky, you can't really tell. But as you're approaching, as you're landing, everything becomes a blur. It's like so fast, everything becomes a blur. So when you're going really fast, everything is a blur. Going in a car also, it's somewhat of a blur. On a cycle, it's a little bit better. When you're walking, you can see things a little better. But when you completely stand still, everything comes into focus. So when you touch the 0 points, when you come into the now, when you ground yourself, when you root yourself, you become very sensitive. You become sensitive to what's going on all around you. You see things that otherwise you would have missed. Like a little while back, I said, notice something you hadn't noticed. It was always there, but you just hadn't paid attention, right? So we just miss it. It's right, it's in plain sight, but we miss it. You might have had the experience of looking all around the house for your glasses, but the glasses on your head. Or looking, sometimes even funnier, you're looking all over the house for your phone, but you're talking on the phone. What's going on, right? And this can happen with us, right? So when you come to stillness, when you come to clarity, when you come to now, you become sensitive. And when you become sensitive, you notice, like we said, emotion is energy in motion. So now you notice that motion can be a smooth, clean motion, or it can be a jerky, constipated motion. So there's a nice word for this: coherence and incoherence. Coherence and incoherence. You might have heard that when the army approaches a bridge, string bridge, one of those line bridges, then they're supposed to break formation. The reason they have to break formation is they all march on the bridge at the same time. It creates a rhythm that coherence can break the entire bridge. That's the power of coherence. Coherence is immensely powerful, and incoherence doesn't have that much strength. So we are all immensely powerful, but we don't realize it because we are living mostly in an incoherent way. When you come into coherence, very fascinating things start to happen, which is why our teachers told us that first you have to train yourself in the basics. The basics is morality. Morality is being conscious of how my words and actions affect people. Because if you're not conscious of that, you're not conscious of how you speak and what you do, then as you go in the spiritual journey, tremendous power builds up within you. And then you're unskillful. It's like you're wielding a dagger. You can hurt people so deeply, so badly. You know, in my journey, people will share things with me. Nothing hurts people more than when they've been let down by their own spiritual teacher. Someone they had such a lot of faith in, such a lot of trust in, and for one reason or the other, they got let down by that spiritual teacher. Nothing hurts more than that. Very deep pain when you lose your community, when you lose your spiritual teacher, or someone that you had a lot of faith in, right? So coming back to this, of how we become more sensitive and more attuned to everything and everyone around us. And this is where we come to the second part of what we're discussing today: expanding. So expanding with inspiration. So today I'd like to share 3 tools, very simply, and if you can explore them more on your own. Today's call is just like a introductory call. 3 tools that I find very helpful, which can help bring what is incoherent back to coherence and can help us expand. So I've broken this up into auditory, kinesthetic, and visual. Auditory, kinesthetic, visual, although it's not necessarily like that, but just a nice way of breaking it down. So some of us are more auditory. We like to listen. We like to talk and listen. Some of us are more visual. We like to see things. And some of us are more kinesthetic. We want to do things. So for all 3 of these people, there is something that can be done to shift the coherence. From incoherence, how do you bring things into coherence? The first one we learn is an auditory method, which is one of the many teaching, with the primary teaching of Ho'oponopono. I'm going to type it out in the comments so you can all see how it's spelled. Ho'oponopono, which comes from Hawaii. And the idea of Ho'oponopono, like I said, is 100% responsibility. So here's an example of how Ho'oponopono is different from a normal therapy. In normal therapy, suppose someone comes to me, I'm a therapist. Then my intention is, how can I help this person correct their erroneous thoughts? How can I help this person heal? How can I help this person have a better attitude towards life? In Ho'oponopono, that's not the case. If someone comes to me for therapy, I realize, oh, how do I have to correct my thinking? Such a person has shown up in my experience. I've got to correct my thinking. If they're having a problem, 100% responsibility. So the idea of clearing. So if there are migrant workers that are suffering in India because of the lockdown, something in me has not healed. This is a very radical way of thinking. This is not the way most people think. Oh, the government's fault and this one's fault. No, if it's in your experience, your part of the equation is your responsibility. So Ho'oponopono, step 1, full responsibility. If there's a problem in my family, people are fighting in the family, if there's a legal case going on, it's my responsibility. If it's in your experience, it's your responsibility. If you're on the brink of war, if there's a coronavirus outbreak on the planet, it's my responsibility. Not to make yourself feel guilty, but to remind yourself just how powerful you are. Because if you're not there, the problem is not there. Isn't that true? If you're in deep sleep, for example, where is the problem? Problem is only there when you are there. When you're not there, there's no problem. So if see, you're very much a part of the equation. Without you, there isn't a problem. Which means there is something here for you to look at. So if it's in your experience, you take responsibility for what's happening. So in Ho'oponopono, step one, full responsibility. No blaming, responsibility. And now there are these 4 beautiful statements. So please say with me. And you can either say it in your mind or you can say it aloud, whatever is comfortable. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Or you could start with, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. What are we doing here?
Nithya, there is
Yes.
this question from Mr. Hardeep Singh.
Hmm.
He says, but this 100% responsibility of yours burdens you as if you are responsible for everything. How would you
Well,
want
aren't you already burdened? Aren't you already burdened? So there are only 2 ways to avoid burden. One is 0% responsibility, which is please take care of it. And one is 100% responsibility. Anything in between is going to be is not going to satisfy you. You see, you're not going to be satisfied, and only everything will satisfy you or nothing will satisfy you. Nothing in between is going to satisfy you, because you're not, you are, it's this or that, right? Anything in between, you'll always be left in the lurch. Ab kya karna hai? So, and actually it's the same thing. Between 100% and 0% is actually the same thing. The whole purpose of Ho'oponopono is recognizing this idea that we are actually not in charge. We think we are in charge. Did you know there are approximately 50 billion bits of information? 50 billion bits of information that are coming in all the time to our senses. 50 billion. Of which our conscious mind is presented with only a handful, maybe 15. So if there are 50 billion bits of information, only 15 is coming into my conscious mind. So then what am I in charge of? Like right now, your body got trillions of cells. There's cells in my eyes, there's cells in my heart, there's cells in my back, in my bones, there's bone marrow. Are you in charge of those cells? The sense of I am in charge is what gets us in trouble. So being responsible doesn't mean I'm in charge of everything. It's about stepping out of the way and saying, my way of looking at it is causing this. How can I heal these memories? So I heal these memories. The whole point is to come back to that point of 0. Come back to the now. So I'm sorry. Well, what am I sorry for? I'm sorry for acting based on memories, acting based on erroneous beliefs, erroneous thoughts, erroneous impressions, right? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Like the example I gave you earlier. Instead of believing I'm traveling in the world is traveling through me. That's closer to the truth, actually, right? But there are many such erroneous beliefs that we're operating with. Like, for example, the belief that when there are more people on this call is more successful. When there are less people on this call is less successful. Says who? Who came up with that idea that more is better, right? Or that if I've touched more people in my life, if you've touched more people in your life, it just means you had to clean up more than others. Could it be that someone who touches no one? There's the principle of non-interference. There was a spiritual teacher, and his main teaching was non-interference. He says, you interfere, you think you're helping someone. How do you know you're helping them? You might be actually impairing them in some way. How do we really know? Can we really be sure we're helping someone? Right? So we don't really know. So coming back to Ho'oponopono, coming into full
there's
responsibility.
Meenakshi Kaushik who wants to speak to you. She's raising her hand.
Yeah, let me just complete this. We'll speak to Meenakshi as well, right?
Yeah.
So get the basic principle. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you and thank you. And throughout the day, just keep this going. Just keep this going. So At some point, a thought, like for example, a thought may arise, yeah, this is all good, but it's too difficult. I can't do this. Now that was an impression which arose. Oh, I've attended many of these sessions. Oh, I've heard of Ho'oponopono before. It didn't work for me. All right, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Keep coming back to this. Keep clearing. If it's in your experience, it's your responsibility. If it's in your experience, it's your responsibility. Clean up your perceptions. Keep coming back to that 0 point. Ground yourself, root yourself. And then from there, the expansion will happen. The expansion typically is a form of blessing. Once you've cleaned up these memories, inspiration comes. And you know what to think and say and do in that situation, but it's not coming from memory. It's inspired. And it's amazing. It's exactly what needs to happen in that moment. So one of the things that came to me is, my teacher told me this. He said, don't prepare for your talks. Like today's session also, don't prepare for it. Don't prepare for your talks. Don't prepare your content. Prepare your intent. Prepare your consciousness. What does it mean to prepare your intent? Get clear about why you're doing it. So one of the reasons I'm doing this is for there to be a deep shift in my state of being and in your state of being. And if there's a recording for today's session, and everyone who ever contacts it, there's a shift, fundamental shift from graphite to diamond. And that's going to happen. If that's my intent, then one way or the other, that's going to happen. And then it's inspired, you see. So explore this teaching, go further into it. It's a very deep teaching. But the main point is just to practice it. And you can even use just some of those. If you don't want to use all the 4 statements, just say, I love you. Just go through your whole day saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. Whatever comes up, I love you. Whatever comes up, I love you. Or you can just say thank you. In Japan, they believe if you say thank you 1 million times, the universe is transformed forever. How can the universe be transformed by my saying thank you? Because so long you've been judging the universe. You've been judging everything. You've been judging the government. You've been judging your neighbors. You've been judging the paint on your walls. You've been judging your wardrobe. You've been judging the way your nose looks. And you're living in this very sharp, painful universe. But what happens is you keep saying, thank you, I love you, thank you, I love you, thank you, I love you. The universe transforms. You transform. Your face will transform. Your environment will transform. Everything you do will transform. I remember going through an airport once. And in the airport, I just had a lot of gratitude come up. And I was just feeling grateful for everything, the security staff and the airline people and everything, the trolley that was taking my heavy bags. And then I looked and I saw these gigantic pillars that were supporting this big edifice of the airport. And I said, wow, thank you, pillars, for holding up this big building. Thanks to you, millions of people can go through this building and get to where they need to get to. And I might have been imagining it, but I really had a sense the pillars were communicating back to me and saying, thank you. Nobody ever thanks us. Millions of people go through this place. No one ever thanks us. I felt so beautiful in that moment, just feeling connected, noticing something that perhaps others took for granted and just saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. So in Ho'oponopono, not only are we thanking people and situations, we're thanking everything. And so we're getting attuned. Like I said, the more you get to 0, the more you feel the pulsation, the vibration, the impulse, the frequency of everything around you, the food that you eat, the buildings that you're in, the spaces in which you're in, the clothes that you wear. And like one of my friends, Gyandev, he says, I asked him, what's his practice? He says, I don't have a practice. I just listen to inner guidance. Which is his way of saying that his inner being is telling him, this is expansion, this is expanding, go in that direction. And this is contracting, either clean it up or don't go in that direction. How beautiful. So when you call up Gyandev to meet him, he'll not just say yes or no, he'll just tune in. He'll say, yeah, you can come. Says, oh, no, it's not appropriate today. This is not a good time, another time, right? So he's constantly following inner guidance. He says, I've learned to just trust this inner guidance. And it's beautiful. Life takes up, the inner intelligence of life starts guiding you. And you're very comfortable saying yes, and you're very comfortable saying no. How powerful it would be if you're all comfortable saying no, instead of worrying, what will they think about me? What will they think about me? Just say no. What a relief it is sometimes just to say no. One thing I've learned is to not so quickly say yes to everybody who asks me for something. People often invite me, come and give a talk. In the beginning, I keep saying yes to everybody. My whole calendar was full. And now I've just learned, I'll get back to you. Let me get back to you. And often, it's like, get back, okay, maybe yes, like today's session, yes. Or get back and say, actually, I want to recommend somebody else to you. Or I'm not getting a yes for this. And how beautiful that is. We don't have to take up every invitation that comes. We don't have to make our life so complicated, right? So when you come to the 0 point, you're not so caught up in your identities, trying to prove who you are to yourself or to somebody else. Somebody said, we spend our whole life trying to answer the question, who am I? Whether you're doing it consciously or not, you're doing this. You're trying to figure out, who am I? Am I productive? Am I unproductive? Am I capable? Am I not capable? Am I a contributor? Am I a taker? What am I? Who am I? We're trying to answer this question. And we're doing it unconsciously. You're trying to get to some point. You're never going to get to any point, actually. Because who you are is one gigantic zero. One gigantic mystery. So can you live from the mystery instead of this hunger of trying to embellish the sense of identity, trying to become a somebody? If you're a somebody, my teacher said, if you're going to be a somebody, you're always going to be unhappy. Somebodies are always unhappy because somebodies are always comparing themselves to what they could have been, what they should have been, what somebody else is. He said the only way is to be a nobody, to be a happy nobody. And the 0 place is the happy nobody. Let's go to Meenakshi. Let me see if Meenakshi still has a question.
Hi, Nithya.
Yeah, Meenakshi, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, of course, I've attended the Ho'opono session of yours earlier also. And again, you've emphasized, and I think it's beautiful when you really helps you coming to 0. I just want you to please elaborate a little more when you say taking 100% responsibility.
Yeah.
Are we essentially saying that, say, for example, the same problem of, you have given an example of current migrant workers traveling.
Yeah.
So is it all in our mind, and if like we are just thinking about it and probably we've not been able to say contribute anything, but it is like we're caught in the cobweb of really thinking all kinds of things which are coming up and becoming a little emotional and overwhelmed by the information we are receiving it. So when we say 100% responsibility, are we essentially saying, okay, take a pause, understand what exactly it is, come out of it, and if requires some action from my point, I'll take it, or else I will just not bother myself with this if I cannot contribute anything to this. Is that what essentially you are trying to?
Yeah, it's quite similar. It's get present. Notice that when you get that news, when you hear about it, then it does something to you, right? Maybe there's a contracting feeling. Maybe there's a heavy feeling. Maybe you feel guilty about your privilege or whatever it is. Something happens inside of you, all right? Or you feel helpless. So now you're feeling this, some emotion has gotten triggered. I take full responsibility for the stories I'm telling. I take full responsibility for the way I'm looking at this. I take full responsibility for this aspect of my life. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And keep going. I'm sorry. Or you could just say, I love you. I love you. I don't know why this is happening. I just love you and I thank you and I bless you. And please forgive me. And I'm sorry. And just keep going. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Doesn't matter how long. It's not about time. And at some point, a beautiful shift will occur. A beautiful shift occurs. And that's where now inspiration comes. Hey, a friend of mine is feeding people. Let me go and help. Let me go and contribute. Hey, I heard about that person who's doing that. What can I do in this situation? Or maybe it is not doing anything physical at all. It is just about every time I get this news, I will pause and I will clear some more. I will clear some more. I will clear some more. So inspired action will come. And the inspired action can take many forms. And by the way, activism is not only physical activism. We are very conditioned to believe activism or go and do stuff. The do-gooders of the world have caused more trouble in this world than anybody else. All those people who are trying to improve the planet have done more damage to this planet than anybody else. It's so simple, indigenous people living in the Amazon, they're simple, not trying to change anybody, not trying to improve anybody. They are the ones who have maintained the planet in good state for centuries. The Aboriginals in Australia, we're talking to, you in Australia now, for I don't even know how many thousands of years, they have been there continuously in harmony with nature.
It's been 60.
I met an Aboriginal lady, yeah?
It's been 60,000 years.
60,000 years, and that's only what we know of. And they have continuously been in harmony. And in the last few centuries only we've come and we've completed. Australia is now getting so much ecological damage. And we think we are very superior to them. In trying to improve it, we've made it so much worse. And I met a young Aboriginal lady recently. I was at a conference and she told me that the Aboriginals saw themselves, their duty was to be caretakers of the land. So their duty is to be the guardian of the land. So they would do these slow burns, which when the Westerners came, they said, hey, stop all of this, you're burning perfectly good forest. But they didn't understand that slow burn was required for the health of the forest. Because when you don't do that, the firewood accumulates. And when you do have a fire, it is absolutely uncontrollable. So the Aboriginals, as part of their system, they knew you got to create a slow burn, a controlled burn, where all the ground wood gets burnt off without damaging the big trees. And then that's very healthy for the forest. That's just one example, right? So again, coming back to that native intelligence, coming back to that intuitive intelligence. Let's learn two more simple methods.
Thank you. Thank you so much
We've
for
learned, thank you, Meenakshi. Yeah, we've learned Ho'oponopono, which is an auditory method. In a way, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you and thank you. Let's learn another simple method. This is one of my favorites. It's called tapping. So whatever's bugging you, you're going to tap some acupressure points. So just tap the side of your hand, do this with me, and say with me, even though this is bugging me, I love and accept myself. For example, even though the migrant worker situation is bugging me, I deeply and completely accept myself. And you can either tap like this, doesn't matter which hand, could be any hand. You would even tap one against the other like this and say, even though this is bugging me, I love and accept myself. So take two fingers and just start tapping the beginning of the eyebrows over here. And just say, all this irritation, all this heaviness, all this tiredness, all this confusion, it's time to let it go. It's safe to let it go. I choose to let it go. I return to peace. I return to clarity, tapping the side of the body like this. I return to peace and to clarity. All is well. Everything is happening exactly the way it's meant to be. Hands go down, take a deep breath. And release. Just be quiet for a moment. And slowly open your eyes. So what we've learned here is called tapping. It's also called EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques. I learned this about 12, 13 years back. And it's amazing. It's a simple thing of when you're feeling something, you're confused about something, physically tap your body. And the way I look at it is, nowadays we don't use it much, but CDs and DVDs and VCDs, we used to have them not too long back. Now, sometimes there would be a scratch on the DVD or the VCD and it wouldn't play. So now look at it like this. You have a certain memory. Your brother did something to you. Your mother did something to you. Your boss did something. Some unwanted thing happened. Somebody hit your car. Whatever it is, it's a difficult memory. It's a traumatic memory of some kind. You take that and it's like a CD. And what we're doing here is we are scratching it. We're scratching that memory. Even though this happened, I love and accept myself. Even though this happened, I love and accept myself. This memory, this memory, this memory. The simple act of tapping, it's like you're putting microscopic scratches on the memory because tapping gets you into the present moment. You're thinking of it, but the tapping gets you in the present moment. So the brain is oscillating between the present reality, which is just fine, and that memory, which is not fine. So oscillating. I'm fine now, but I'm not fine there. I'm fine now, but I'm not fine there. You start scratching that memory. And usually in 3 rounds or 5 rounds, or at the most 10, 15 rounds, beautiful shift occurs. And the memory doesn't grip you the way it used to. In fact, sometimes the memory just disappears. Like, oh, what happened? It's gone. Because it was never a true memory to begin with. It was an erroneous belief, an erroneous thought. It was something superimposing itself on your experience. So you would tap like this. And again, everything, I'm just giving you an introduction. You can go, there's plenty of resources freely available on the internet. Check out tapping, check out EFT. There's a nice app called Tapping Solution. You can get that app if you like. You'll get, the point is, when you have the intention, all the knowledge is available. You have to have the intention, you have to have the willingness. So I've used this for years and I found it so effective and so powerful. And I've helped so many people with all kinds of phobias, all kinds of addictions, all kinds of traumatic memories, fear of heights, fear of spiders, sexual abuse, all kinds of things. And it's amazing because I studied psychology. It's not supposed to happen so fast, but it does happen really fast. So working with energy, which is why emotion, energy and motion, the simple practice gets energy flowing. And the constipated, when you get upset, you feel the tightness somewhere, tightness in your heart, tightness in your belly, tightness in your face, tightness in your hands. Something has gotten constipated, something got stuck. And by tapping, it starts to move, it starts to flow. So invest in learning about tapping. You've learned the basic points. This is the side of the hand called the karate chop point. Even though this happened, I love and accept myself. Just do a little reminder, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. I choose to let it go. It's safe to let it go. It's time to let it go. And tap. In the beginning, just go to YouTube. There's a nice teacher called Brad Yates. I can type out his name. He has a good channel. You can just tap along with him. Brad Yates has a nice channel. Many different topics. Just tap along with him. You don't have to learn it. Just tap. See, whatever he's doing, you just do it. And as you go along, you learn this and you can start doing it on your own. So this is a kinesthetic way of integrating and balancing our energies. So we've learned Ho'oponopono, which is an auditory way. We've learned tapping, which is a kinesthetic way. Deepa is asking, do you say tapping works for kinesthetic kinds of persons? I would say it works for all people, but I would just say learn these 3 different styles. And I actually use all 3. All 3 I'm going to teach you today. I use all 3 of them. When I'm with other people, when I'm in company, it can be a little bit funny to tap. Although I don't mind tapping because I've cleared out my embarrassment about tapping. I can tap anywhere. But when I'm with other people, I might just say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And that's my way of clearing. Let's learn one more way. This way is called the 5-minute miracle. This is one of the first experiments I learned about the power of intention. The 5-minute miracle is to vividly visualize the best possible outcome for any situation and surround it with love and light and feel it like it's already so. To be grateful for what you want before it happens. All right? So take any situation of your life. Maybe it could be a family member that's not doing well. It could be financial situation, could be a health situation, could be just about anything. And you ask yourself, what's the best possible outcome? For some people, it helps to write it down first. The best possible outcome includes step 1, step 2, step 3. The most important thing is don't worry about how will it happen. Oh, how is it going to happen? How is your stomach going to digest the food today? Oh, how will my stomach digest food today? You don't know that. You just eat your food. It gets digested. Don't get caught up in the hows. We get too caught up in the hows. We're using our brain in the wrong way. Your brain is designed to be visionary. You decide what you want and you attune yourself to it. You release what is not serving you. You come to the 0 point and you wait for the inspiration. And inspiration is definitely going to come. And then you act on the inspiration. There's a nice teacher called Mike Dooley. And he talks about the law of attraction in a very nice way. He says 3 things. Step 1, get clear about the generality. What do you generally want? Right? So generally, we want to be happy. We want to be healthy. We want to be fulfilled. We want to be contented. So generality, what do I want? Would you rather be more joyful or would you rather be more depressed? Most people say, I want to be more joyful. Who wants to be more depressed? Do you want to have a sense of clarity or do you want to have a sense of confusion? Most of us want clarity. So get clear about the generality. Step 1. Step 2, get clear about the specifics. And specifics, you don't get too hung up on the specifics because that makes you doubt. Oh, it's not happening. How is it going to happen? Just dabble in the specifics. Dwell in the generalities, dwell in the big picture, and dabble in the specifics. Wouldn't it be fun to have this kind of car? Wouldn't it be fun to be in that kind of place? Wouldn't it be fun to do that kind of work? Wouldn't it be fun to work with those kinds of people? Wouldn't it be fun to make an impact in that community? So dabble in the specifics once in a while. And finally, inspiration starts coming. So act on the inspiration. Playfully act on the inspiration that comes. I love his synthesis. It's very nice. Because too often we get so hung up on the specifics. And it's all right to make vision boards and it's all right to write affirmation, but don't get hung up on the specific. Oh, I wrote this affirmation so many times. Oh, my vision board has been there. It's not happening because you got too hung up on the specifics. So trust that there's a larger intelligence. Do that if it expands you, but getting hung up in it is only going to contract you. So do it to the extent it brings up joy, because what you're really looking for is not that outcome. You're doing things from joy, not for joy. So you may get that outcome. You may not get the outcome. Man chahi ho to acha, na ho to aur bhi acha. This is the teaching of Harivansh Rai Bachchan. If you get what you want, that's good. If you don't get what you want, that's fantastic. So vividly visualizing. If you go to YouTube, there's a video of mine with the 5-minute miracle of love. And you can go through that video. So we've learned 3 good tools today. Let's start summarizing what we did today. We learned about emotion is defined as energy in motion. We learned about grounding and growing, rooting and expanding. Grounding means to get present, coming to a place of 0, letting go of all your identities. And from there, you're much more attuned and you can sense what is coherent and what is incoherent. And whatever is incoherent, you take 100% responsibility. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you, thank you. I love you, thank you, please forgive me, I'm sorry. Or you can tap. Or you can visualize. and ask yourself, what's a higher quality thought? And you surrender that thought to the power of love. The power of love is taking care of this. So one way of practicing all of this, I like to say, give people 3 mantras. Most people who've come for my session, they've heard these 3 mantras. First mantra is how wonderful. No matter what happens in life, keep saying how wonderful. Even if it's an unwanted thing, you say how wonderful. How wonderful. How wonderful, how wonderful, how wonderful. Your life becomes wonderful. You'll not be able to find anything wrong in your life. People say, oh, but I'm pretending. You're pretending anyway. Any thought you believe is a pretend thought. No thought is real. Every thought misses the mark. In reality, everything is the way it is. In reality, nothing ever happened. The wise ones tell us nothing ever happened. How different is that from our experience? Because we are living in an illusion. So what's it like? What's it like? How wonderful. Letting go of all your projections. How wonderful is the first mantra? Second mantra is cancel, cancel. Whenever you have a very sticky thought, very heavy thought, of course, we can do those 3 techniques we've taught about. Or just say cancel. Something that's all it takes is recognition. What am I doing? Why am I believing this low quality thought? Cancel, cancel. Very fun way. And it works for most of the time. Just if it's very sticky, you can go through the Ho'oponopono, you can go through the EFT, you can go through the 5-minute miracle. But sometimes if it's a lightweight thing, cancel, cancel, and you're out of it. I don't want to believe that. Why would I believe that? Cancel, cancel. And the last one is rule number 6, which is my favorite. Rule number 6 is don't take life so seriously. Don't take life so seriously. Remember to smile, remember to laugh. What if all of this is one big joke you're playing on yourself? And it might just be. It's one big joke and you're taking it so seriously. So remember to smile, remember to laugh. Don't take life so seriously. People say, what are the other rules? We say there are no other rules. But why is that? It's rule number 6. Don't take life so seriously. All right, I am done with what I wanted to share today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was a great insight, Nithya. I think there are a few more questions that we need to entertain. It's from Arpita Ganguly. She's asking, can praying for the migrants' well-being work in the same way? Sending them our love and courage?
Of course, yeah. There are endless processes and methods. And praying is one way. Even Ho'oponopono actually is a kind of a prayer. The thing is, remember, when you take 100% responsibility, you're not separating yourself from the creator. You're not separating. It's a non-dual experience. You know who answers your prayers? You answer your prayers. So you pray and then you also, what do you say at the end of prayer? Amen. So you say granted. It is so. Tathastu. So you make the prayer, then you say it is so. And then you're giving it the power for it to happen. So why not? Prayer also is very, very, very wonderful, very valid.
Right. And there's another one, Deepa. She's asking you, do you say tapping works for kinesthetic people alone?
No, it works for everybody. I think I answered that. It works for everybody, yeah.
All right. Wonderful. So with this, we come to an amazing end of this session. Is there anything that anybody would want to speak to Nithya directly? I think, yeah, there's Bhaskar Narayan and Rohit Shah who wants to speak to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll unmute Bhaskar Narayan first. I think, Bhaskar, you'll have to unmute yourself. Bhaskar, are you there? No, I don't think that's
Let's try the other person. Yeah, let's try the other person.
So that's Rohit Shah. Mr. Rohit, you've been raising your hand. Is there anything you would want to speak to Nithya about?
Well, I'm very well impressed by this lecture, and now forever I will not miss anyone. This is the first one I have gone through 100%.
Thank you so much,
You
Rohit.
like my saying?
Yeah.
Oh, if I'm not wrong,
that's
it
so happens that I am Ruchi's grandfather.
Oh, wonderful. Lovely, Rohit. Wonderful. Glad you could join.
Thank you so much, Dada. Thanks for joining in. All right. Is there anybody else who would want to speak to Nithya?
Natasha is asking, can you share more about rooting and expanding? So rooting essentially means coming into the now, coming into connection with the present. Whatever practice helps you, meditation helps you, exercising helps you, walking in nature helps you, just sitting quietly helps you, deep breathing helps you. Connect with the now. There are certain practices which are rooting and grounding, and there are certain practices which are expanding. So for example, gratitude is an expanding practice. Intention is an expanding practice. Visualizing is an expanding practice. Blessing everybody is an expanding practice. The Brahma Viharas are expanding practices, right? And then there are rooting practices which get us into the now. So the simple act of breathing, the simple act of seeing, the simple act of sitting quietly, meditating, being contented, writing down what you're feeling can be grounding experience, right? So there's grounding and there is expanding, and both of them are needed. So you find your own practices that help you ground, and you find your own practice that help you expand. And what's stopping you from expanding is the stickiness, those old memories. And you've learned three good ways to let go of those old memories: Ho'oponopono, the tapping process, and the 5-minute miracle. Use all those three, and expanding becomes very natural, very effortless. And like this, you live a much more empowered life, a much more intuitive life. You're going directly. Grounding leads to enlightenment or self-realization. Expanding leads to self-actualization. And we need both. We want to be enlightened and embodied. We want to be self-realized and self-actualized together.
Wonderful. I think there are a few more questions in the chat bar. That's Natasha.
Anita is asking about, yeah.
Okay.
I answered Natasha's question. We have Anita saying specifics and generalities. Yeah, so get broadly aware of the generality. Like for example, the generality for today's call is that I had an intention. Let there be a shift of states. Let there be a shift of state. One way or the other, let there be a shift of states. In terms of specifics, oh, wouldn't it be nice to do Ho'oponopono? Wouldn't it be nice to talk about rooting and expanding? Some of the specific. Oh, wouldn't it be nice to introduce tapping as well? We'll see how it goes. Now, it may happen or it may not happen, but those are some of the specifics. And then intuitive flow. So you ask me some questions, you know, that intention, that image came of the tree and the roots. And how do you know the age of a tree? It's coming from zero. So that came to me and I wanted to share that as well. So that's an example of being general, being specific, and then intuitively flowing with it. Apply that to different aspects of your life, Anita. What's the correlation with Vak and the practices? I'm not sure what you mean by Vak.
Shalini, could you please elaborate? What do you mean by Vak? Do you want me to unmute you?
Yeah, hi. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, what you mentioned, and I don't know, I think I missed out on.
All right. Yeah. So of course, all three will touch all three. It's just generally the Ho'oponopono practice is more auditory because you're saying things, so you're using words, that's auditory. And the tapping process is more, even though you're using words there as well, but it's mostly about tapping. So it's kinesthetic. And the 5-minute miracle is visualizing. So even though that also has elements of saying things, and of course you'll feel things, but the main practice there is visualizing and surrounding the best possible outcome, BPO, best possible outcome, with love and lights, right? So that would be more of a visual practice. But again, all three will work for everybody. We just have, some people are more inclined towards words. Some people are more inclined towards doing, and some people are more inclined towards visualizing. So see your own inclination and let that be your primary practice.
I think all three of these senses would work for each other. So I guess they're all three interrelated.
They are interrelated.
So yeah, I think that's how it works.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, thank you all for joining.
All right, we have a few more questions, but I think we're short of time, and hence I'll definitely email all these questions to you, and if you can get back.
No, let me just answer them. See, Brahma Viharas, go to YouTube. I recently recorded a video on the Brahma Vihara. There are 4 Brahma Viharas: Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. Right? So infinite love, infinite compassion, infinite appreciative joy, and infinite balance of mind. Just go to, it's not Brahman Vihara, it's Brahma Vihara, BRAHA. Brahma Vihara. So go to YouTube. There's an A after H as well. I got the spelling wrong. Today I'm spelling everything wrong. I think it's again spelled it wrong. You know what, Ruchi, I'm going to give you the link.
Yeah.
You find it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I can't spell it right now.
That's
I
okay.
don't know what's going on.
That's fine. It's a day of learning for all of us. You
Yeah,
found
go to my
new
YouTube
ways.
channel, and I recently uploaded a video on Brahma Viharas. You'll find it there, right?
Sure, not a problem. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining in. Thank you so much, Nithya, for sparing your time. I know how busy you are, and I know how lucky I would have been for my invite. You've said a yes, and that was, I just realized I was so lucky during your session. So I definitely hope to conduct a few more sessions with you, just in case if you can say a yes to me once again in the future.
I'll get back to you.
That's the answer. Now that's what I need to expect. That's all good. For the further sessions, because I've got a few more requests over here that people do want to know about my further sessions on Sattva Speaks, for which I will be putting on my phone number, which is my WhatsApp number as well, and my email address. Also, I have a Facebook page. If you can just go and like on there, and you can get all these updates. I also put a regular review of every session that I do with every speaker. So you can definitely go on and have a look at it.
Why don't you type out the Facebook page? They can find it.
Yeah, I just need to stick a link on there. Just give me a second.
Is there a name? Can we search for it?
Yes, it's Sattva. So that's
it's just Sattva. SATT.
SATTVA.
Okay, so we'll search for Sattva. All right, good. Wonderful. Thank you, Ruchi, and thank you, everybody.
Go, and thank you so much for your wonderful insight. It's been great hour, and we just did not realize we're beyond 1 hour now. And it was amazing being online with you. Thank you so much, Nithya. And thank you, everybody, for hanging on with us. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.